The man slipped a powerful substance into the drink, then handed it to the unsuspecting, well-known TV host. The host hurriedly put on her clothes and noticed her phone was filled with missed calls from her husband. She intended to act like nothing had happened, but the man sent her intimate photos of the two of them and used this dangerous leverage to threaten her, forcing her to endorse a virtual currency, and even making her join him and a friend in a compromising situation. What he never expected was that the woman had a dangerously unhinged younger brother. The man who once tormented their mother had already been tortured to death by him. So what fate would this man meet? The heroine, Yu Young, is a star lecturer at a TV station, and on this day, through her boss's introduction, she met entrepreneur Sean-hee. He was polite, charismatic, and socially adept, and claimed to be a devoted fan of hers. That evening, the group went out for drinks, and a tipsy Sean-hee couldn't help but remark, "Society these days is becoming increasingly restless, and even children are getting hooked on harmful substances." But Yu Young expressed a different opinion, saying she believed people are inherently good and the world is not filled only with bad people. Hearing this, Sean-hee's expression became hard to read. He didn't continue the discussion and quickly changed the subject. Meanwhile, Yu Young's younger brother, Kang-soo, was plotting something big. For days, he had been staking out a target from his car, even enlisting someone to help keep watch. Finally, his persistence paid off, and he successfully intercepted his target. Kang-soo walked up and struck the man with a club, knocking him out, and when the man regained consciousness, he found himself tied up in a dimly lit secret room. Kang-soo slowly approached with a knife, asking the man if he remembered who he was. The terrified man nodded repeatedly. He was the one indirectly responsible for Kang-soo's mother's death. Sensing Kang-soo was about to act, the old man quickly begged for mercy.
우리 엄마가 살아오냐고. 우리 엄마가 당한 고통.
After tormenting the man, Kang-soo returned to work at the bar. At that moment, a group of men at another table were clearly trying to get a young woman drunk. Her friends sensed something was wrong and tried to intervene, but the men refused to let the two leave. Kang-soo stepped in, driving away the men, then helped the women get a taxi. Meanwhile, Yu Young had finished her gathering, and Seon-hee eagerly followed, insisting on driving her home. On the way, Yu Young ran into her brother, but he walked right past without acknowledging her. When they arrived at her home, they unexpectedly ran into a man who had been harassing Yu Young. After learning the situation, Seon-hee told his driver to get rid of the man and assured Yu Young, "He will never have the chance to bother you again." This gentlemanly gesture made Yu Young feel a certain fondness for him. The next day, Yu Young looked at the scar on her wrist and remembered what had happened years ago. Back then, the police had arrested the old man, but Kang-soo couldn't stand the thought of his enemy living on, and tried to stab him. Yu Young stopped him with all her strength, but in the struggle, her wrist was cut. At the same time, Kang-soo also recalled the past. He had once seen his sister being hit by her fiancé, and to defend her dignity, he didn't intervene immediately, but later found the man and beat him severely, which landed him in police custody. Kang-soo had once been a top athlete, on the verge of joining the national team, but his impulsive act ended his sports career. Back in the present, Seon-hee had told Yu Young he was in the luxury clothing import business, but in reality, he was the leader of a gang involved in loan sharking, protection rackets, and other illegal activities. Surrounded by shady underlings, his true self was nothing like the refined image he showed Yu Young. At this moment, Yu Young called Seon-hee to thank him for the luxury clothing he had given her. What exactly was Seon-hee's motive for getting close to Yu Young? That remained unclear. Meanwhile, Seon-hee's subordinate, Long Hair, secretly sought out the gang's second-in-command for a chat. He began by asking, "Do you trust Seon-hee?" Normally, the second-in-command would be preparing to branch out on his own, but it seemed Seon-hee didn't want him running his own business. Seeing no reaction, Long Hair brought up another topic. There was a publicly traded company about to be acquired, and I suggested Seon-hee invest $1 billion. If he had done it, the profits would have already quintupled. The second-in-command frowned slightly, and Long Hair continued, "Now there's another chance a batch of convertible bonds is being issued at half price. Buying them now could earn at least 6 to 10 times the investment." Tempted, and reassured by Long Hair's promise that this deal is foolproof, will return in 3 months, and Seon-hee will never know, the second-in-command told Seon-hee, "I want to start my own venture. I'll take over the imported medical equipment business." But Seon-hee replied, "The medical equipment business is just starting, and I still have things to handle. You'll have to wait." Elsewhere, Since finding a stray cat in an alley, Kang-soo had been caring for it well, even bringing it to work. One evening, while delivering goods, the cat accidentally fell out of his pocket. Kang-soo quickly put down his things to look for it, only to find it in Se-in-hee's hands. Bowing repeatedly, he begged Se-in-hee to let the cat go. By coincidence, one of the gang members there was an old friend of Kang-soo's, the same one who had introduced him to the job at Se-in-hee's place. Holding the cat, Se-in-hee said impatiently, "If a friend got you this job, you should do it properly. Why are you bringing a cat to work?" Kang-soo apologized profusely and promised it won't happen again, but Se-in-hee gave a cold smile and tossed the cat out the high-rise window. Kang-soo rushed downstairs, but couldn't even find the cat's body. At that moment, Kang-soo suddenly remembered he had seen this man before. Later, while eating with his friend, the gang member warned, "My boss isn't someone to mess with." Last time, a guy said the wrong thing in front of Se-in-hee, and he drove a knife straight through the guy's hand. The friend also whispered, "From what I've seen, the women Se-in-hee dates all end up in strange situations. Remember the high-profile case of the news anchor who took her own life? She was his ex. Now it seems he set his sights on someone else." Alarmed, Kang-soo met with his sister and, after a brief chat, got to the point. "Se-in-hee is a gang leader," Yoo-young replied. "I know what kind of person he is, but we barely have any contact." "Don't worry," but Yoo-young disliked suspicion and mistrust, so she was destined to walk right into trouble. A few days later, she went out for drinks with Se-in-hee again, this time with a colleague. But soon, the colleague got an urgent call and left, leaving Yoo-young alone with Se-in-hee. A little tipsy, Yoo-young complained, "My husband is such a boring person. He doesn't like drinking, and we hardly share any hobbies." Se-in-hee took the opportunity to agree and express his understanding, then ordered a glass of champagne. After that drink, the two ended up crossing a line they shouldn't have. When Yoo-young regained consciousness, everything had already happened. She hurriedly put her clothes back on and then noticed her phone was filled with missed calls from her husband. Back at home, she was drowning in regret, and when she looked at her daughter, the guilt only grew heavier. But soon after, Se-in-hee called her, and Yoo-young reminded him, "I'm a married woman." Se-in-hee paid no attention and ignored her attempts to cut ties, often sending her flirtatious messages at any time and in any place. Unable to take it anymore, Yoo-young agreed to meet Se-in-hee at a cafe to talk. He showed up acting overly charming, arriving in a luxury car and carrying flowers. Yoo-young had planned to tell him, "We should end all contact." That night, after I drank the champagne, my memory went blank. I don't even know what happened, but Se-in-hee never gave her the chance. He insisted, "That night, you told me you liked me, so I only half resisted before going to the hotel. This is all your fault. You can't just say it's over and walk away." Then, with a threatening tone, he added, "Anyone who crosses me never ends up well." Yoo-young's heart skipped a beat, and she didn't dare mention cutting ties again. That evening, Se-in-hee welcomed back a friend who had been on the run for 3 years and invited him to work with him. The friend asked, "Have you been involved with any illegal substances these past few years?" Se-in-hee shook his head repeatedly. "There are so many ways to make money, I'd be crazy to touch drugs." But the friend gave a sly smile and said, "There's a new thing coming out of North Korea called Pink Flame. No one knows XA, what it's made of, and it's not even on the registry yet. So for the next 2 or 3 years, it won't be a priority target for law enforcement. This is a gold mine. Just work hard for a year or two, and you can walk away rich." Se-in-hee's eyes flickered with greed. Cut to Yoo-young, who was just about to leave work when Se-in-hee called, telling her to come right away to help entertain some guests. With leverage in his hands, Yoo-young had no choice but to obey. Arriving on time at Se-in-hee's nightclub, the sight of a famous TV host forced to pour drinks made her smile on the outside but feel like her heart was being cut apart. One of the hostesses deliberately brought up, "Didn't you and your husband appear on that couple's reality show?" Forcing Yoo-young to give an awkward smile, Se-in-hee shot the bar hostess a cold glance and kicked her out of the private room. But then he crossed the line even further, sending Yoo-young a selfie. He was standing at the hospital where her husband worked. Yoo-young immediately called to demand an explanation, but Se-in-hee brazenly replied, "I just came to see your husband. I didn't say a word about us." That only made Yoo-young angrier. What she didn't know was that, in reality, Se-in-hee had spiked her drink that night, and everything that followed had been orchestrated by him. Elsewhere, unaware of any of this, Kang-soo passed by a flower shop and was reminded of his mother how, back then, she could only admire the flowers she liked because they couldn't afford them. Now, he bought a bouquet and went to the riverside to remember her. He blamed himself for not understanding her struggles and always asking for pocket money. And not long after, He had received the news of her tragic death. This became a thorn in his heart, and for a moment, he felt as if she were still beside him, comforting him like before. Meanwhile, Yu Young's heart was growing heavier. During a family dinner with her husband, Se-in-hee suddenly appeared, deliberately asking her for an autograph. As her family told him to leave, he loudly asked Yu Young, "Do you know me?" The next second, Yu Young woke up thankfully. It was just a dream. If she continued down this path with Se-in-hee, it was only a matter of time before everything was exposed, destroying her family and career. She texted him, pleading, "Please let me go. I don't want to keep making mistakes." Se-in-hee replied quickly, still refusing to end things, only agreeing to give her a little breathing room. The next day, he met with a bearded man from the underworld and asked, "If I can get my hands on Pink Flame, can you move it to Japan for sale?" The man was skeptical. Pink Flame is hard to get. First, the North Koreans are extremely suspicious and only deal with their own. Second, the supply is unstable, but Se-in-hee confidently claimed, "I already have a stable source." Hearing his certainty, the bearded man agreed to cooperate, saying he would handle finding buyers in Japan, but he needed to see a sample first. Se-in-hee had his men bring it from the safe, letting the man look but not taste. Meanwhile, Long Hair, one of his subordinates, ran into serious trouble. He and the second-in-command had poured all their money into the stock market, only to discover the company that had brought them in had vanished without a trace. They had been scammed. When the second-in-command asked, "When should we sell the stock?" Long Hair lied, saying, "The market looks great. We just need to wait a bit longer," barely managing to keep him in the dark. Back on Yu Young's side, she suddenly received an intimate message from Se-in-hee. She called him immediately, but he ignored her until he decided enough time had passed, then finally picked up. Furious, Yu Young demanded, "Why did you take those kinds of photos while I was asleep?" Se-in-hee dodged the question and said, "If you want to see for yourself, come to a certain hotel room." Although she didn't want any further contact with him, with the leverage he held, she had no choice but to go to the hotel alone. The moment she said, "Taking photos without permission is illegal," Se-in-hee snapped, "I'll send them to the TV station and your church. You'll be ruined. Worst case, I'll just do my time." Then he shouted in a burst of emotion, "I only did this because I love you too much." As he spoke, he picked up a piece of broken glass and held it to his neck. Terrified, Yu Young tried to calm him down. In the end, she was once again cornered, and the two ended up together again. Afterwards, Se-in-hee still didn't forget to take more private photos. When she got home, Yu Young broke down in tears, regretting she hadn't listened to her brother. The next day at work, her boss called her in and scolded her for accepting a cryptocurrency endorsement. Confused, Yu Young only understood when she saw the photos this was Se-in-hee's doing. She rushed to call the crypto company, demanding they pull her ad, but they ignored her and called Se-in-hee instead. Soon after, Se-in-hee told her, "It's just a photo. I used it. So what? If you're not okay with it, I have other ones." That threat left her with no way out. Meanwhile, during a workout, Kang-soo suddenly remembered that day how he had stood over the old man with a knife, hesitating for a long time before deciding not to do it. Killing him wouldn't bring his mother back, but while Kang-soo was away, the old man managed to break free. Instead of simply escaping, he tried to attack the sleeping Kang-soo with a brick, only to discover the bed was empty. It had all been a test. Unfortunately for him, he failed. This time, Kang-soo didn't hold back and killed the man for good. Back in the present, Kang-soo got a call from his sister, but when he answered, there was only silence. Alarmed, he asked, "Has something happened?" His sister, her voice trembling, made an excuse and hung up. The next day, Yu Young met with Se-in-hee again and asked him, "What will it take for you to leave me alone?" Se-in-hee gave a cold laugh and demanded that Yu Young divorce her husband. If she couldn't do that, he would take the photos straight to her husband, and until the divorce was final, they would have to meet at least once a week. Yu Young felt a storm of emotions inside but had no choice except to agree. That night, Kang-soo grew more and more uneasy, so he called a friend to ask, "Find out who your boss is chasing after these days." The next morning, the bearded man called Se-in-hee, saying, "I'm bored of bars and nightclubs. Today I want something different." A thought clicked in Se-in-hee's mind. He immediately remembered the leverage he had over Yu Young. That evening, Yu Young got a call from Se-in-hee, telling her to come meet him, and adding, "A car will be there to pick you up soon." The person who came to pick her up just happened to be Kang-soo's friend, though unfortunately, he didn't know this famous TV lecturer was his friend's sister. And so, Yu Young was taken to a private property. When she refused to cooperate, Se-in-hee immediately used the TV station and her in-laws as threats, leaving Yu Young with no choice but to give in. Meanwhile, Kang-soo's friend called him, complaining that he had followed long hair into the stock market and ended up losing all the savings he and his wife had. Kang-soo joked that he should ask the boss for the money, but the friend shot back. The boss only cares about eating and drinking with his buddies. He doesn't care if his men live or die. Then he suddenly remembered Kang-soo's earlier request and told him, "The woman coming to see Se-in-hee tonight is the star lecturer Yu Young." The words hit Kang-soo like a bolt of lightning, and the moment he realized, he jumped in his car and rushed over. Unfortunately, by the time he arrived, Yu Young was already pinned down on the bed by Se-in-hee, and to his shock, there was someone else in the room. None other than the sleazy bearded man. By the time Kang-soo got there, it was already too late. His friend told him, Yu Young just left the place. Kang-soo quickly drove off to catch up, and the siblings sat in silence in the car, neither speaking a word. The next day, while Se-in-hee was out having fun, he suddenly got an urgent call from his men. The cash and the pink flame in the company's safe are both gone. Furious, Se-in-hee cursed at Long Hair. "Why did you put all 10 billion won in the safe?" One of his men quickly explained, "It's hard to withdraw large amounts of cash in Korea right now, so Long Hair told me to keep it in the safe for now." Se-in-hee, still seething, immediately pulled up the security footage and saw that the one who took it was the kitchen boy he had thrown the cat on. Kang-soo, he ordered his man, "Call the kitchen boy now." But Kang-soo's phone was already switched off. The kitchen manager was then summoned to the office, and he nervously explained, "He suddenly took the day off today. I don't know where he went." Se-in-hee exploded with rage, kicking one of his men to the ground. Right now, the missing cash was the least of his problems. The bag of pink flame was what really mattered. Soon, the true owner of the goods, Chairman Ryu, showed up. He dismissed Se-in-hee's men with a single sentence, then confronted Se-in-hee. How could he fail at something so simple? Without another word, the chairman pulled a silenced pistol from his bag and pressed it to Se-in-hee's forehead. Jong-ho quickly tried to explain on Se-in-hee's behalf, but in the next second, the chairman pulled the trigger and Jong-ho collapsed to the floor. The sight terrified Se-in-hee, and the chairman used it to threaten him. "You have 7 days to get the pink flame back, or you'll end up worse than him." At that moment, the bag of pink flame was in Kang-soo's hands, and he seemed to be planning something. Meanwhile, the bearded man finally answered Se-in-hee's call, but instead of offering a solution, he had already fled to Japan to hide, leaving the mess entirely to Se-in-hee. Se-in-hee was furious beyond words, but there was nothing he could do about it. In the end, Kang-soo received a text from Se-in-hee that read, "If you want to save your friend, call me," along with a photo. Kang-soo immediately called him back. To keep Kang-soo calm, Se-in-hee said, "I don't care about the money you took. Just hand over that red package, and I'll let your friend go unharmed." The two agreed to meet in the middle of the night for an exchange. That evening came quickly. Not long after Se-in-hee and his men arrived, a masked figure appeared before them. In reality, Se-in-hee had secretly set an ambush nearby the moment he got the goods. He planned to kill Kang-soo, but unexpectedly, the second-in-command stepped on the package, making a sound that alerted the masked man. As soon as the second-in-command and his men rushed out to attack, the masked man threw down the pink flame and bolted, drawing most of the pursuers away. At that moment, only Se-in-hee, Kang-soo's friend, and Long Hair remained at the scene. The next second, a car suddenly rolled out of the shadows. The driver stepped out. It was Kang-soo. The masked man earlier had actually been someone he hired to play the part. While Se-in-hee was still stunned, Long Hair suddenly turned on him, hitting the boss with a stun gun and dropping him to the ground. The three of them quickly tied him up and loaded him into the car. It turned out this had all been part of their plan. Kang-soo had split the cash from the safe with his friend and Long Hair, in exchange for their betrayal of Se-in-hee. Se-in-hee was a complete failure as a boss. What kind of leader eats the meat and never even lets his men have a sip of soup? And to make the act convincing, Kang-soo even pretended to stun Long Hair as well. When the second-in-command and his men returned, Kang-soo easily took them down with a few quick moves, then drove away without looking back. A few days later, Kang-soo arranged to meet his sister and drove her deep into the mountains. After walking some distance, they arrived at a hidden building. Kang-soo took out a key and unlocked the door to a secret room. Yu Young immediately sensed something was wrong and asked her brother, "What is this place?" "This is where you can forget your painful memories," Kang-soo said. "There are all kinds of people in the world, some as kind as you, and some as filthy as Se-in-hee. Sometimes, There are even those worse than devils. That's why I believe that only by getting rid of those with evil in their hearts can the world return to peace. With that, Kansu brought Yu Young face to face with Si and Hee, who had been held captive for days. Seeing them together, Si and Hee immediately began shouting insults. Kansu picked up a steel rod from the wall and swung it hard at Si and Hee. Blow after blow landed, and Si and Hee's screams echoed through the secret room. Yu Young watched in shock the whole time, but she didn't speak up to stop him. Then Kansu handed her the steel rod, and Yu Young, crying, swung it herself. At last, Si and Hee began to beg for his life, pleading with Yu Young to let him go, but secretly, he picked up a shard of glass and began cutting the ropes around his hands. The next moment, Si and Hee suddenly lunged, holding the shard against Yu Young's neck. Kansu calmly tried to keep him steady while tossing a key to the shackles on the ground, but just as Si and Hee unlocked them, Kansu hit the switch, sending a jolt of electricity surging through his body. Si and Hee collapsed in agony. Every step had been under Kansu's control. Kansu told Yu Young, "Evil people never change. Only by completely eliminating them can you truly protect yourself and the ones you love." This time, even as Si and Hee dropped to his knees to beg, Yu Young didn't soften. She ended him with her own hands. Sometime later, Yu Young's life returned to peace, while Kansu set his sights on Little Beard. After all, the bearded man had also hurt his sister, and today would be his last day. And that's where the story ends. This is the tale of a good person being pushed too far and striking back with full force. Yu Young, our heroine, started out like someone living in a fairy tale, always believing that if you trust people and show them enough love, the world will become a better place. But that kind of innocence becomes a fatal weakness when you meet someone like Si and Hee, the kind of man who hides his rot behind a polished smile. From the very beginning, Si and Hee had bad intentions, first using gentle charm to win her trust, then drugging her, taking compromising photos, and using them as blackmail to pull her deeper into the mud. Her brother Kansu, on the other hand, was her complete opposite. He grew up watching his mother be mistreated and his sister be abused, and he learned early on that being kind to bad people is being cruel to yourself. He stalked the man who caused his mother's death, stepped in to defend girls from harassment, and even poured his heart into caring for a stray cat. These moments showed he wasn't born cold-blooded. He had simply seen enough darkness to know you can't reason with evil. Kindness should have an edge. Believing people are good is fine, but you can't bare your heart to those who would tear it apart. When faced with someone like Si and Hee, you have to fight back or the abuse will only get worse. Yu Young's kindness wasn't wrong, but her mistake was not knowing who deserved it. It dragged her into the abyss. Kansu's methods were extreme and outside the law, but they were born from harsh reality. Both choices tell the same truth. When facing darkness, you can't keep retreating where your kindness will be trampled. Alright, that's the end of today's video. Thanks for watching. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions are the best encouragement for us. See you in the next one.